It was on, I apologize. Call this meeting to order on the Fort Ord Reuse Authority for February 13th, Friday. It's a great date and day to have my first official meeting as the chair of this board, but is there in fact a quorum? Okay, quorum does exist. If you'd please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will be going into closed session and adjourning this meeting, open session this meeting. In closed session, we will have conference with legal counsel relating to two matters: Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, case M114961, and the City of Marina versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, case M11856. Before we go into closed session, is there anyone present in the public who desires to speak on any of these matters? Seeing none, we'll come back and we'll adjourn and we'll go into closed session and come back as quickly as we may. Thank you. We're back out of closed session. We're back into open session. And we're waiting for legal counsel to come back and report out on closed session, but let us proceed at this point to roll call of the members, please.
City of Carmel by the Sea, Mayor Pro Tem Beach. City of Delray Oaks, Mayor Edelin. Here. City of Marina, Chair O'Connell.
Here.
City of Marina, Councilmember Morton. Here. City of Monterey, Vice Mayor Hoffa.
Here.
Monterey County, Supervisor Potter. Monterey County, Supervisor Phillips. Here. Monterey County, Supervisor Parker. Here. City of Pacific Grove, Councilmember Lucius. Here. City of Salinas, Mayor Gunter. Here. City of Sand City, Mayor Pendergrass. Here. City of Seaside, Mayor Rubio.
Here.
City of Seaside, Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby. 20th Congressional District, Alec Arago. 17th State Senate District, Nicole Charles. 29th State Assembly District, Taina Vargas Edmond. University of California, Donna Blitzer. California State University, Eduardo Ochoa. Monterey Peninsula College, Vicky Nakamura. Walter Tribley. Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, PK Diffenbaugh. Monterey Salinas Transit, Lisa Reinheimer. Transportation Agency of Monterey County, Debbie Hale. United States Army, Colonel Fellinger. Fort Ord BRAC Office, Bill Collins. Marina Coast Water District, Director Lay. Monterey County, Supervisor Potter. Chair O'Connell, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Lena. We'll go back. Announcements of action taken in closed session, please.
Thank you, Chair. At the closed session, the board heard from council on the items listed at 3A1 and 3A2, Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and the City of Marina versus the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and there's nothing to report out.
Thank you very much. Number 6, acknowledgements, announcements, and correspondence. As to 6A, basically, it is referencing my desire to have a certain procedure followed on action items that come before the board. It's a procedure that I have followed in the past when doing chair-in meetings, and at MST it's consistent with the way in which they handle it. As to the other acknowledgements, announcements, and correspondence, I'll leave it to our executive officer.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6B is the California Central Coast Veteran Cemetery groundbreaking ceremony, and I just wanted to make sure all of the board members pulled out their calendars and made sure to put Friday, March 13th at 10:30 a.m. on their calendars. Each of you will be receiving an individual invitation for the board members from the California Department of Veterans Affairs, but we will have a ceremony that'll be at General Stillwell Community Center on the base. I know Paul Fellinger's not here right now, but Colonel Fellinger's taken several hours out of his schedule to assist and make sure that his colleagues at General Stillwell Community Center help us to make that a reality. They've also going to help with color guard and some other important things that'll be part of that ceremony. So I just wanted all to be aware. At this point, the governor has been invited, and we know for sure that personal contact has been made, and the State Secretary of Veterans Affairs will be here, as well as the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs will be here for that event. That particular day, board members also have a board meeting. That will be at 2 o'clock. So this item that starts at 10:30, there'll be some very special instructions for each of the board members, so be prepared to spend much of that day, if you are able, as part of this the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery celebration. Also that same day, because we have the pleasure of Congressman Farr, Senator Monning, and Assemblymember Stone being here for that celebration, we have also preliminarily suggested to the Legislative Committee and to the Executive Committee that would also be a good day for the FORA annual legislative session, where we would get reports from all three of those elected officials, representatives, on status of items in the federal government and in the state government. And so if you would also note that on your calendar, March 13th would be the day for the legislative session. If I could, Chair, I'm going to move to item 6D, which is the report on the charrette by Dover Coal and Partners. Josh Metz is going to help coordinate this. We have Jason King and Dina Belzer from the team of all-stars that FORA selected to do this regional urban design guidelines. The presentation they're going to give today is a snapshot of what many of you heard a couple of nights ago on Wednesday night, and others heard on Monday night, and many that are in this room, both in the audience and on the board, have heard over the last couple of weeks as an exciting exercise leading to thinking through how we implement the requirement for regional urban design guidelines that was specifically called out in the 1997 base reuse plan. That effort to do these design guidelines has brought many members of the community forward. The jurisdictions have been more than adequately represented. I think Councilwoman Morton has attended every minute and took extra special time to visit the FORA office. We thought she was part of the staff for a little while, but we knew better because we take orders from Councilwoman Morton. But we did find the effort to be very beneficial for the whole community. And the one thing I want to emphasize was how much the community engaged in the discussion about regional urban design guidelines, about how we can better improve our ability to take advantage of the very best natural elements that we have here while we build jobs and economic recovery from the closure, especially with respect to the gateways, the centers, the connections that have to be done. So I think Jason King is going to start this presentation, and he will be aptly supported by Dina Belzer on the economics of what we're doing. Jason?
Thank you for having me. So my name is Jason King. I'm the project director for the Design Guidelines project for the consultant team, working closely with Josh. Josh is going to put up the slides, some of the slides that we showed the other night at our work in progress presentation. And we've done 7 hands-on activities with the public, and we just finished one a few minutes ago over at the Chartwell School. We had over 40 kids, teenagers, contributing to the ongoing plan.
To get the slides set up, if we could take maybe the consent agenda first and come back to this item, would that be okay?
Certainly, unless someone on the board objects to that. You can sit down and rest a moment. Thank you. Please remind me to come back to it, okay? At my age, I have a tendency to forget.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
over here. in left field. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the FORA staff. This last Tuesday, we had a celebration of life for Jim Arnold. The FORA staff set it up, and we had people come all the way down from San Francisco over at Cooler Ranch in Marina. And it was an opportunity for all of us to get together and remember Jim, all the great things he did, the influences he had on our lives, and the great work he did for FORA. I'm sure Jim was smiling down at us during the celebration, and I wanted to, it was a very valuable remembrance, and I wanted to thank the FORA staff for setting that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to the consent agenda, there are 3 items. 7A is the approved January 9th board meetings. 7B is 2015 Ad Hoc Advisory Committee reauthorization on the Veterans Issues Committee, as well as the Post Reassessment Advisory Committee. And C, to confirm the chair appointments to the 4 legislative and finance committees. Is there anyone on the board that has any questions relating to any of those 3 items? Seeing none, I'll go out to the public. Is there anyone in the public wants to pull any one of those 3 items or has any questions on it? This is wonderful. Bring it back. Close public comment. Entertain a motion.
Move approval. Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Morton and seconded by Supervisor Parker. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous vote. Want us to go ahead with, we're ready? Okay, let's go back now to the report on the design guidelines. Charette? Thank you.
So you'll remember, the purpose of this project is not to redo the reuse plan. You have an excellent reuse plan in place. The purpose of this project was to concentrate on the gateways, the centers, and the corridors, and the trails. We finished the charrette, which just really wrapped up, like I said, just a few minutes ago at the Chartwell School. But this is just the beginning. We did a pin-up on Monday night, and we're going to start presenting pieces of the design guidelines to the FORA staff, and then we hope by spring to be able to present the draft guidelines to the FORA board, and by fall we'll be moving into adoption meetings. We had over 120 people last November. At the Trail Symposium, over 180. Our hands-on February 3rd had 70 participants, and we did a poll. We asked where people were from, and all of the municipalities were represented with the exception of Delray Oaks. So then the next day, Josh arranged a meeting with Delray Oaks. Our team went mobile in order to get as many people as possible. We were in Seaside both at night and in the morning. We went to CSUMB campus to talk to the students there, talk to professors and to staff. Interesting thing about the Seaside event was by having one at night and then having one in the morning during the weekend, we were able to talk to completely different people both times. At Marina, we had over 50 people, including the mayor and a lot of staff. We've been presenting to each of the municipalities. In total, we've been able to talk to all of the FORA board member municipalities. We had an open house, over 60 people in this room. All those ideas went back to the design studio where probably the most interesting or helpful part of the project was happening, and that was the one-on-one conversations that we got to have with people as the ideas that we had at these maps were being translated into illustrative plans or guidelines. We had over 25 stakeholder meetings, talking to local developers especially, talking to small organizations like the owner of the youth hostel and large groups like the U.S. Army or Caltrans or to CSUMB. We talked to many neighbors, many people living on the base, and bicycle and trail advocates. The list goes on. And then the work in progress, again, had over 70 people attend it. In total, if you count all the people that participated in one of our activities, or that we got a chance to talk to at one of these meetings, or were part of the hands-on activities, over 1,200 people had a one-on-one, direct, personal, live interaction with the team. The conversation continues online. If you go to fora.org, you can then go to the foramymixer.com site, which used to have only just a few people, but now we've got over 300 people having an active conversation, which is exciting. And we're still sending out tweets and emails, mass mailings, Facebook and YouTube views. Now let me just show you a couple of the things that we heard. You'll remember the one-word card. First time we presented this project, we explained the results of the one-word exercise in November. At this point, we've had over 200 people from all the different municipalities and from the surrounding area. You know how this works? We asked them in one word what comes to mind about the former Fort Ord, now and in the future, and they wrote in their answer. And the more times an answer repeated itself, the larger it appeared in the word cloud. So you ask over 200 people, which is a pretty good sampling, and the word opportunity was the largest. You know, so that's over 50 or 60 people said opportunity. And you see wild and beautiful and green, and then you also see the challenges we have. Of course, the blight, the neglected, the decrepit. We asked them in one word what comes to mind about former Fort Ord in the future, and the answers were more diverse. Destination, vibrant, green, community, village, appearing, sustainable, open, trails. There is a framework map which is online now. During the work in progress, I went through all the different pieces. But essentially what that's doing is it's identifying the different trailheads, existing, proposed, and potential. It's identifying the various trails that go through the fort. It's talking about centers. It's talking about gateways. All of this has been mapped out now. It's still just a rough draft, but I recommend you take a closer look at that. In terms of our big ideas for this project, the public said create destination centers and notable gateways in one way or the other. Sometimes it was in this kind of form. These were two young people that lived in Marina that talked about the places that they went to. They said that Marina could use more like that, and they drew themselves a town center. They based it kind of on Sonoma. We then took the design team and we looked at that Marina connection. We looked at the area between where we are, let's say, on Imogen Parkway and Patton Parkway or the Del Monte area, and we tried to knit together the two marinas, right? The Dunes area being one, the new marina, and the Del Monte Boulevard area being the previous center. With an interconnected network of streets and with ample greenways and paths, we crisscrossed the area and we did a plan to sort of set the framework or set the stage for development that's complete, compact, mixed use, walkable, and pedestrian friendly. This is just how you lay it out. This is the grid of streets. We went even further talking about how the design of buildings could look in such a way that would face streets, how there could be a mix of unit types from apartments to townhouses to single-family houses, all within single neighborhoods. Things could be connected and there could be a green presence at the center. Looking at the Seaside East area where we received a lot of feedback, we toured the site with people that lived actually on General Jim Boulevard. We reviewed the plans that were done for that area very, very closely. Essentially what we did is we looked at the Seaside East Conceptual Master Plan, and we looked at how they allocated open space, how their uses were aligned, and we took all of that to the next phase. So in accordance with that plan and all the work that had been done, we were looking at how we could create, a fabric of streets similar to essentially extending Seaside, ample green space, a system of trails. There's one area in particular that's of special interest. Where Broadway meets General Jim Moore Boulevard, the grid actually is sort of in conflict, which is great for urban designers. It's going very east-west, and then it goes sort of at an angle like this, and that creates the opportunity for a vista. When you look down Broadway, currently, you're looking right at a part of that Seaside East extension. What our designers imagined was looking down Broadway and looking at a proud civic space. Two buildings that could potentially have within them a view notch of the fort, of the national park lands. We were, and when you talk about Seaside with people that live there and you talk about Seaside with the representatives, they were saying jobs, jobs, jobs. And with images like this and plans like we've done, we were trying to make it even more clear what jobs could look like. Give an image that could be kind of a promotional one for the area. And imagine, what could happen in areas like this. This is the plan that for the Seaside extension visualized. Talking to the students, they talked about wanting to have a unique experience in the area. They talked about the high quality natural environment and bringing up the man-made environment that would be worthy of this beautiful place. We asked them where they went off campus for recreation and fun, and the majority said, you know, downtown Monterey. And it was interesting and you know, unfortunate really that none of the students that we asked, over 80 students, said that they went to downtown Seaside or downtown Marina yet. This design exercise was about imagining how we can improve places like that. Immediately close to the university campus, of course, is 2nd Avenue. And we were working on how public improvements to the public space, bicycle investments, potentially even pavers in some areas so that way cars know that they've arrived into a pedestrian area, could lead to private investment, you see. With just 3 buildings, stepping down, allowing plenty of space for all the green that CSUMB wants to have, we were trying to imagine how we could create a center for student life and capture more of that student activity right there on 2nd Avenue. What was interesting, and of course, you know, our designers imagined that the roller rink could use a little more windows and a facelift. What this isn't about is architecture, right? The style can change. Any number of styles would be appropriate in this area. It also, we're not mandating that things be 3 stories or 4 stories. We have to be realistic about how much growth you're going to see in the near term. But what was important was how buildings front the streets, how they, in certain spots, create outdoor rooms, active areas, a sense of arrival, a complete place. At the Lightfighter Gateway area, you pull off of Highway 1 onto Lightfighter. There's quite a bit of thinking in terms of what could happen in that area. There's a lot of room for things to happen. There's the Army housing, there's the PX, there's the beginning of the university campus. Lightfighter is the front door to the university, it's the front door to a lot of things. We were imagining in just that small an area, what could happen if things are built compactly with a lot of forethought. Properties are coordinated. A lot can fit. You can also have the opportunity to create a kind of gateway, open spaces that say you've arrived somewhere, that protect the oaks, that create that outdoor room, a sense of place. Has to be plenty of parking in places like this, but it could be behind buildings. There are opportunities for museums or for monuments. When we talk to the students or people during the hands-on exercises, they were talking about just making it clear that this used to be a base and that there's a proud military history. And they talked about museums dedicated to diversity, especially. There are focal elements and traffic calmed streets, like roundabouts, to reconcile 2nd with Lightfighter. What if? So the conversations like this led to pinup of ideas and concepts, illustrative plans. And then that sort of sets the groundwork, that conversation for the design guidelines. And you see within all the renderings with all the plans that I was showing, certain principles are consistent. And the next part of this project is to take these emerging ideas and to turn them into recommendations for placemaking. We asked the public the other night what they thought of the ideas, and there was a lot more. That presentation was about 2 hours. I just gave you a quick hit the highlight synopsis. We asked them if the design guidelines project was generally on the right track, gave them the keypads, and 79%, almost 80, said that the design guidelines were, when we asked specifically, is the design guidelines project generally on the right track? 80% said yes or maybe yes. And the other 20% we're going to continue to talk with and try to win over. Now, when I show those big renderings that have a lot of buildings and a lot of green space and a lot of investment, it's important always to temper that to local regional growth projections. And so whenever we've done presentations of a vision, we also bring up our economist to talk about how we can be strategic about where we start first.
Thanks, Jason. I have a longer presentation. I hope most of you saw it on Wednesday night, and if not, it'll be posted online with the whole presentation. But the long and the short of it is that this west part of Monterey County, the northern cities, remain a small and semi-slow growing market, but as you come out of the recession, the market is definitely improving. Where we see the most demand now is for houses, but we see demand coming from a variety of household types and income groups. So we're hoping that over time, this will be an issue that can be addressed, but it's not the focus of the reuse of the guidelines. What the guidelines do is they create a buzz and an image and an opportunity to create design value that then builds value in terms of people's willingness to invest and to accelerate the pace of the absorption of units. So we think this is really a critical part of the design guidelines and something that they really offer. We also see that in the near term, increased construction opportunity allows you to leverage the workforce that you already have here and to train young people to move up into many of the construction trades. It's an essential part of what you have in your economy here. And yet over the long term, it allows you to start to leverage creating a quality diverse place that allows you to continue to incubate and build some of the smaller businesses that right now are more nascent, but could emerge over time as young people graduate from CSUMB and decide to stay and start their business here, or a faculty member moves here, but that faculty member's spouse is a small business person. So there's an opportunity to see this as a multi-pronged strategy that really helps to focus on the economic development. So we think that this is a great opportunity. We also think that this is a great chance to address some of the issues for older people who are here, to think about how the trails system can tie into the health and well-being of people. So there are a lot of good ideas that are emerging out of this that we hope will stimulate other conversations that might be beyond what the design guidelines are. The point is, the final point here is that even if you begin to really accelerate the pace of build out for the reuse plan itself is going to be somewhat slow, but that's not a bad thing. It allows you to continue to correct course over time. It allows you to continue to work together to meet the needs of the local community today, not just thinking about what's happening in the future. So there are a lot of exciting opportunities here. In terms of the regional design guidelines themselves, we think that it's really essential to continue to think about how to prioritize public and private investment. There's CSUMB, which is really again, the feeder for this nascent and somewhat emerging high-tech or sort of more knowledge-based share of your economy. But there are the dunes, there's the second and Lightfighter, there's Seaside East, the places that Jason also has just highlighted that again offer the opportunity to build on working with the building trades and also to create this focused placemaking. So we really want to use the design guidelines to create a new buzz, and here it says a new brand image, but I think really, and people have been giving me feedback even since Wednesday night, that there's not just one brand here. We want to be really clear about that. We understand that. But still, what we find is that, and Jason was saying this the other day, when you have a conversation, it changes the conversation. And we really want to capitalize on this conversational opportunity to reach out again to the development community, to the industry, and to everybody who's been involved, sort of rethink and reimagine what the opportunities are, because they're very good ones. So with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Questions?
This is just an informational item, so I wasn't going to open up to questions or to comments from the public or the board. We do have, at a later portion in this agenda 10F relating to the guideline task force, unless it's the desire of the board to open this to questions or comments. It is?
I had a question of the speaker. Just, I think it's pretty important.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, you made a statement when you were showing the Second Avenue depiction. Okay, first of all, I thought it was great. The question you said, well, you made the statement, we're not mandating 3 or 4 stories, could be less. Okay, you're using the term mandating. What do you mean by mandating when we're talking about guidelines?
That's right, yep. So these are guidelines, especially at the FORA level. They're largely going to work as recommendations. They have the power of them is the power of good ideas. So so when I show a 4-story building, I just want to make clear that if it doesn't work for the market, if it doesn't work for CSUMB, if it doesn't work for the municipality that's affected, it's nothing that we're going to push.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jason, thank you. Dina and Josh and everyone involved in this whole process. We look forward to the future as far as bringing matters back.
So Chair, what can we do with that specific comment?
If you, under 10F, we can have specific comments by the board members or the public. Let's move on to the business item. Business item 8A is the second vote on the approved executive office compensation adjustment. Authority Council Giffen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On January the 9th, the board voted in favor of a recommended adjustment to the executive officer's compensation. That is a 4% salary increase and an $8,400 a year benefit increase. The matter is now up for a second vote, and if there are any questions,
Thank you.
please.
Are there any questions of any board members relating to this particular item? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Is there anyone in the public who has any questions or comments relating to the second vote on the executive office compensation adjustment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back and close public comment. Entertain a motion. It's been moved to approve this particular item. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Mayor Rubio made the motion and Board Member Edelman made the second. Well, let's have a roll. Is that okay? Who wants it? Pick one. Well, after he said that, we'll leave it with Board Member Edelton. Can I have a roll call on this, please?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Could we have a articulation of what the motion is?
Yes. Staff recommendation is to, if you look at item 8A,
I think the staff recommendation is different than what the first vote is, or was, what the first vote was.
can we have a clarification?
If council person could clarify, I'm not aware that it was different.
This is the second vote, the first vote being 6-5 in favor of this particular item, and we're now coming back for a second vote to approve the executive office compensation adjustment.
I'm sorry,
Please
Chair.
go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that the motion is to approve the alternative 2, which is the 4% increase and 4% compensation.
That is correct.
Just this year in 2015.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Great, thank you for that question. Roll call, please.
Mayor Edelin?
Aye.
Mayor Gunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Lucius? Aye. Councilmember Morton?
No.
Chair O'Connell?
No.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby?
Yes.
Supervisor Parker? Mayor Pendergrass?
Yes.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Potter?
Aye.
Mayor Rubio?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, board members.
Did you get to vote?
I don't think I was able to record my
Excuse me.
vote.
Vice Mayor Hoffa?
Nay.
Is there anyone else who didn't get a chance to vote? Does anyone want to vote a second time?
The motion passes 8-4.
Thank you very much. Going to item 8B, this is to rescind the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership Agreement. And please realize that the question before the board at this point is the rescission or not to rescind the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership Agreement based on what took place since the last vote on this matter. And I will turn this over to the Executive Officer, Mr. Hulemar.
Yes, Chair, members of the board, this item is brought to you at the recommendation of our controller. The board took 2 votes to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Fort Ord Reuse Authority and the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership in the amount of $100,000 in order to form a stronger partnership in the region for economic development. The board requested that the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership report back. The staff recommended quarterly. That was included in the draft agreement. There was an exchange of emails, and upon the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership's one of the board members returned, they sent an email indicating they were no longer interested in proceeding with the partnership, although they would like to continue to work very closely with FORA, but in a different manner. So staff recommendation is to rescind the former action and to bring this back next month when the staff reports back on the economic development program in general.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from any board members on this particular item?
I got a question, Chair.
Yes.
Michael said that the board voted on quarterly reports. Then my understanding is they pulled back because we wanted them to report monthly. So I'm trying to figure out what was the communication between staff and this and the partnership to make them want to pull out, because they didn't want to report monthly if the board required quarterly. Where is the disconnect at?
I'm not aware of any recommendations that they report back monthly. The only thing staff communicated was quarterly.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Or any questions or comments from members of the public? Please limit your comments or questions to a 3-minute period.
Levon Stone, Executive Director of Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network. There was $100,000 allocated for the economic development person. What happened to those funds? And I think that those funds and funds that could work with the local community who best, the organizations who best know and represent the local community concerning any economic situations such as jobs, affordable housing, training, those funds and any other funds should go toward getting with the local community, especially those organizations that represent them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Is there anyone else in the public who desires to make any comments or questions on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back. Mr. Hulman, do you want to address her question related to that?
Yeah, Evangelist Stone has made that comment a couple of times in the past, and staff is intending to bring back a report to this board. Both the Finance Committee and the Executive Committee both indicated that a report on how the full board would handle economic development would be appropriate. In that exchange, we intend to bring a report back and provide the board members the early part of March a report in that regard, so that on March 13th the board could deliberate on that question. What Levon Stone has indicated is a comment about how the local community would participate in that part of the process.
Thank you very much. Bringing it back, as I said, I will entertain a motion on this matter. Is there any board member desiring to make a motion to either rescind or not rescind this agreement?
So moved.
It's moved to rescind this, is that correct? Yes. All right, motion's been made by Board Member Edelin to rescind, and it's been seconded by Board Member Morton. Is there any comment from?
I have a comment, Chair.
Yes, please, go right ahead. Board Member Gunter.
I find it rather discouraging that once again this board votes on numerous items, not once but twice on everything they do. And here we are once again, and we're going to bring this back. I figure it should take about 5 more years and we'll be working on economic development at the rate we vote on things. And there's no future in that, and we should hang our head and be ashamed as a board that we've allowed this to occur. We had someone stand at our podium and offer us $100,000, and we blew that off. You know, $400 million and the barracks are still standing, people aren't working, and now we have a new plan. Hopefully we will get our act together in the future, because, you know, Fort Ord's going to go away. And to the chairs of both people from Seaside, Marina, Delray, and Monterey, some of the electeds will have some explaining to do someday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments by any board member? Seeing none, could we have a roll call on this just to make certain? Thank you.
Mayor Edelin? Mayor Gunter?
No.
Councilmember Lucius? Councilmember Morton? Chair O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby?
No.
Supervisor Parker? Mayor Pendergrass? Supervisor Phillips? Supervisor Potter? Mayor Rubio?
No.
Vice Mayor Hoffa?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Going on to item 8C is the FORA fiscal year 2014-15 mid-year budget. Our executive officer will make the presentation. Thank you.
Yes, Chair O'Connell, members of the board, usually in February of each year, we bring to the board for consideration the corrections and adjustments that have to be made based on actions taken by the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board in the first part of the fiscal year. And Josh, I know you can turn those lights down a little bit for me. With respect to the FY 2014-15 budget, the Finance Committee and the Executive Committee have each seen pieces of this, and the Finance Committee has found that there are sufficient funds to address these corrections/adjustments in the mid-year, and the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Executive Committee is making some recommendations for staffing adjustments based on staffing needs to replace Jim Arnold, as well as to make some tweaks to fill those holes. So in the first slide that you have up there, it shows the all funds combined summary. This summarizes essentially our financial picture, points out that with respect to revenues, there's some adjustments that are based on the following slide will give more detail. Some adjustments in expenditures where we, because of a land sale, we primarily we had more in, because of the PLL policy, we had more in expenditures. And then so the net is a slight adjustment in change, but still at the end of the expected end at the fiscal year, we'll still be in financially reasonable, if not strong position. Next slide. When you look at the all funds combined just revenues, I mentioned the pollution legal liability insurance component of both revenue and expenditures. With the PLL, we transferred funds we already had in a special account that was provided under the ESCA that allowed for us to purchase the coverage for the jurisdictions on the former Fort Ord to cover pollution legal liability. So that was part of a transfer. I mentioned that we had a partial payment and a land sale. I'll mention the rest of that in a moment, but under revenues we did get partial repayment of the PLL, partial repayment from Delray Oaks of monies owed from the prior PLL policy, and also some reimbursements for the new policy. And then land sale proceeds, I mentioned the Delray Oaks land sale before. That's the primary component of that $1,200,000. Next. This provides a little bit of a detail on expenditures. I'm not going to go over the PLL policy because I mentioned that already. There's an additional budget for certain staff adjustments and to correct for the compensation. That's under salaries and benefits. We have made to make a change in the use of this particular facility in that the carpenters have asked for us to increase our rent, and so that makes that the correction for that. And then we have another cost that was the Preston Park loan extension cost. We were not anticipating an extension of the loan, but it has had to be extended as we have finished our settlement terms with the city of Marina. Next slide. So with the most specific changes, we had staffing changes and the reorganization. As I mentioned before, the executive committee reviewed this where we were replacing a vacant position at a lower level than it had been before. That savings is being moved around to take care of reclassifying some other positions. And then under the economic development specialist, there's an additional $40,000 for that item. in the event that the board wants to have the flexibility in making its decision about how to proceed on economic development in the month of March, and that's at the recommendation of the Finance Committee. Next slide. So today, the requested board action is to approve these additional expenditures and adopt the 2014-15 mid-year budget.
Thank you, Mr. Hulmart. Any board questions on this particular matter? Seeing none, I'll go to the public. Any questions or comments from any member of the public relating to this particular item? And again, realize if you do get up to speak, there is no requirement that you state your name or your place of residence.
Yvonne Stone, Executive Director, Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network. The budget we have discussed for many years. The local community has been waiting and waiting for relief. And I've said this many times and I'm continuing to say it, concerning how they're going to survive in their community. We've seen a lot of great, beautiful things going on here with the design charades and all of that. But there is nothing saying, okay, we're here at the table and this is what will take place. This is how much is allocated for this project and that project. And how long will the local impacted community have to wait for relief? I don't see where the budget is saying anything about how to remedy the situation that's been going on for years with our local community. And Fort Ord would never go away. You know why? Because we were here at Fort Ord when this process happened. And a lot of people have been discouraged and messed up in the process, and it will continue to be Fort Ord. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stone. Any other member of the public desiring to speak at this time?
Good afternoon, board members. Doug Yount with Applied Development Economics. Just like to encourage you to move forward with approval of the mid-year budget, and specifically keep in mind when you come back in March for the consideration of economic development items that you look at the potential for funding on the Small Business Development Center in the county, as well as the Institute for Innovation and Economic Development at CSUMP.
Thank you, Mr. Yount. Seeing no one else, I'll close public comment, bring it back, and entertain a motion.
So move.
It's been moved. It's been moved by Board Member Gunter and seconded by Board Member Lucius. Any comments by anyone? Yes, Mayor Rubio.
Just one quick comment, and that's to the element of economic development. We just heard Ms. Stone talk about, you know, the passage of time and the lack of progress, and we find that we are constantly at loggerheads here when there's people waiting for this economic development, which means jobs and quality jobs for our citizens. As we look around us, there's some communities here that are more severely impacted than others, and sometimes we need to get beyond our philosophies and start getting this work done so that those folks can go to work. And the elements in this budget that speak to funding an economic development advisor are needed, and I'm glad they're in there, and I fully support them staying in there and us finding a way to make that happen.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just for the benefit of the public and board members, next month the question of the economic development will be coming back to the board for consideration. I do, however, on a personal note, in some respects, as a member of the Marina City Council, want to state that the settlement of the Preston Park litigation, which looks like it's going to take place is considered by the city of Marina a win-win situation, not only for the city, but for FORA. And I want to thank all of these board members, as well as the staff and the executive officer, being very respectful to myself and to Councilwoman Morton. And I have not felt at any time that I was in any way being disrespected during this whole process. I think the $35 million that's being paid by the city, which represents 1/2 of the appraised value of the May 2014 appraisal, is appropriate. And I look forward in the future as a representative, as well as the City of Marina, working with FORA and its staff to cooperate fully in getting this former Ford Ord proceeding to a position where everyone is feeling comfortable with the success. And I thank you all. And at this time, we'll take a vote. I don't think there's a roll call needed. All in favor of this particular item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Moving on to the item 8D, the authorize the Preston Park loan application. Please realize that this is just a request to authorize the staff, the executive officer specifically, to proceed with filing an application in case something goes awry, that we hope doesn't. Robert Norris, I believe? Yes. Don't be shy.
As you've already stated by introduction, that this action is to authorize the executive officer to initiate a loan for Preston Park as a contingency measure, just in case things do not transpire as everyone hopes they will. So that this is basically an action to let him begin the process, because if at the time schedules allotted we do not complete the anticipated close of escrow, we'll be inside of a 90-day period in which to take other actions. And that's the report.
Thank you very much, Robert. Are there any questions from any board member relating to this matter? Seeing none, I'll go out to the public. Is there any member of the public desiring to make a question or comment relating to this? Seeing none, I'll come back in. Motion's been made to approve it by Mayor Rubio and seconded by Supervisor Parker. This time I got it right, I think. Any comment? This is going too smoothly. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous vote. Thank you. Now, I think the honeymoon period just ended because we're going to AD, prevailing wage status report. Robert again, I believe. Thank you. It's an information and action item.
Mr. Chair. Yes. May I make some comments first?
If it's all right with the board in general, Mayor Rubio desires to make some comments relating to this matter. I don't see any objection. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I know this is unusual, but I just wanted to preface this presentation. I know staff has worked hard on it, and this is in front of us again. A little bit like what Ms. Stone was saying before about we keep on revisiting these things and nothing gets done. We're going to hear a report about prevailing wage on the former Fort Ord. We've had several board reports, several study sessions on this. We've come close to having conferences on this. We've had several opportunities to reach out to the development community and everybody involved, the jurisdictions and so on. But what I want to say is that this is mostly and really about enforcement of our own code, our own master resolution. And we really do, as a board, have to take some action to get that resolved. There's people out there that are working on this base that are not getting paid the proper rates. Now, at one time it was decided the cities would do the enforcement, and that has not worked out well. So maybe it's time for this board to take action, take control of its own master resolution, and take care of the enforcement of this project, this whole project, the former Fort Ord, and make sure that our master resolution is enforced by the Fort Ord Reuse Authority. Now, I know there's gonna be some talk about more study sessions and maybe conferences or whatever, but it's not about that. It's about putting the stepping stones together for this board to be able to enforce its own rules. So with that, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert, if you would, please.
I would like to thank Mayor Rubio for giving a substantial preview of my report.
That means yours is going to be real short, right?
Basically, if you will move through the report, aside from the recommendation to receive the report, the main takeaways are that from all parties, if you look down to the analysis section of the report, all parties interviewed, both developers and from the labor side, have complained of a lack of transparency regarding roles and responsibility, and the third party monitoring compliance professionals have given us a set of recommendations that we're working through. Those are specify a local place of record for record review as prescribed, by regulation, and there was some question as because FORA, in using this as a contractual obligation transfer, whether or not the Public Law 1776 application, we've sent a letter to the Department of Industrial Relations requesting clarification on that. Include in our requirements a requirement for access to additional records to audit payments so that we can determine compliance, and to require field inspections, and that such consequences such as fines and or debarment be put in place and enforced. I'm going to sort of glance over, there was a significant issue with one of the projects regarding underpayment that, thanks to monitoring and following up, has been addressed, but there was a possibility that there would have been a real substantial underpayment involved, and the numbers is in excess of $900,000. And as we move on, we're going to bring back a set of formal recommendations, and I believe the executive officer and the mayor have all pointed to the fact that it looks like there has to be some FORA-wide program that everybody will comply with a set of rules and a central place to go to for documentation and for answers. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Norris. If you please stand by. Are there any members of the board that have any questions relating to this item? Yes.
This is just a question, a request for information. I just don't know the answer to this. I noticed in the background that FORA, the enabling legislation for FORA didn't include provisions for prevailing wages, but rather that was a policy adopted by FORA. So the question is, do we actually have by statute the enforcement powers available to us, or would that require further legislation?
Yes. Yes, we have enforcement powers through the master resolution.
Are there any other questions by any of the board members? Yes.
Do we have the staff in place to do the enforcement?
That's your answer.
We have done enforcement in the past, and we've usually done it under contract for, in both cases, these were rehab contracts, where the contractor contracted with us to do all of the enforcement work and all of the monitoring work. And we charge relatively little for that. We charged enforcement, we charged a cost like any other agent would have done. So if we were to do it, we probably would use that method. We don't currently have sufficient manpower to add this to everything else we're doing. But we certainly could if, and we'd have to bring that back with exactly how we would do it, but we never looked at it on a broad scale because the board policy had been jurisdictions enforced, not FORA, but we could. And I think under a reimbursement program, we probably could make that happen, maybe some, and subsidize it maybe a little if the board wanted to.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from any board members? Yes, Supervisor Phillips?
All right. That was my question. Would we get reimbursement from the jurisdictions who want us to enforce it for them?
I do think at least one jurisdiction and maybe more would prefer that FORA do the enforcement, but I'm not positive. But it wouldn't be through the jurisdictions, it would be from the developer. And that's what the jurisdictions typically do under their disposition and development agreements, or whatever agreement they have with their developer, who would then pass that on to a particular project builder. That's how monitoring is typically done.
Anyone else? Great questions. Thank you very much. Let's go out to the public. For any questions or comments, please, you have 3 minutes. Do not have to state your name or residence, and please respect the rights of other people by limiting your comments and questions to a 3-minute period. Thank you.
Hello, FORA Board. My name is Chris Burdett. I'm an organizer, business rep for the Electricians Union, IBW 234 in Castroville, as well as a delegate for the Monterey, Santa Cruz Building and Construction Trades Councils. Building Trades Council represents approximately 3,600 skilled professionals in the construction industry within the Monterey Bay Area. I wish to take you back to 1993 to 95, as people within all disciplines of our industry, engineers, architects, contractors, building associations, and unions came together with the goal of working with the reuse group and eventually the reuse authority to ensure local businesses and local workers would benefit from the reuse of the closed portion of this once military base. Leveling the playing field, that was the key element that came from the cooperative effort. One of the standards established was workers would be paid standard wages, prevailing wage. Contractors could not use labor to undercut the price of others to compete for projects. Therefore, local business would be able to compete with the out-of-area businesses whose workers are paid less. The report given in this agenda follows the history up through the adoption of the procurement code and master resolution. Let's now fast forward to 2006. Target Store project at what is now the Dunes. It was revealed that prevailing wages were not being paid, and what ensued was the protracted lawsuit, which not only upheld the standards in the master resolution in the local court, but also the 6th District Court of Appeals. We will note that the Marina community partners, Shea and others, settled before the suit ever went to trial locally. We all have been through difficult times, but things are starting to look up. A couple years ago, and activity is picking up. With this, it has brought about opportunity and increased construction. Projects are being built, and what was once hoped for and put on hold is moving forward. Unfortunately, there are those who would choose not to remember or just don't care what our community had established. The problem is one of accountability. We have found all too often regarding payment of prevailing wages for workers. FORA has set the standard and passes the responsibility down to the jurisdictions, who pass it on to the developers, who then pass it on to the contractors. You know, stuff rolls downhill. In 2006, FORA established a policy that either FORA or a third-party compliance group be hired to monitor the payment of prevailing wages. This in itself became a problem because the jurisdictions are passing all the responsibility down to the developer, who in some instances has hired a compliance group that is beholden to the developer for payment and only wants the monitor to superficially perform his duties. This becomes a situation of the fox guarding the hen house. Then when the problem is identified, the issue of who is responsible for resolving the problem goes right back up the chain, and no one is accepting their responsibility because they had originally handed it down to someone else. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. My name is Ken Peacock. I'm the Senior Field Representative for Carpenters Local 605. In my career, I've investigated and presented complaints of the most despicable abuses and wage thefts that you can imagine. They range from everything from the obvious you know, not providing statutory break periods or paying compensating for them and overtime problems. They escalate to worker misclassification issues, to shaving the work hours of the workers on site through piecing and 1099 fraud. They get very elaborate as in all kinds of forms of kickbacks, check cashing schemes, and deferment of wages into bogus retirement, health and welfare plans, and unemployment plans. My team has pulled certified payrolls within 2 different jurisdictions on numerous projects and on numerous contractors. And they were plagued with red flags of obviously the abuses that we're talking before. When I reached out to the people with the local authorities that had the oversight, I was told that, well, the sheriff has that, and the building department has that. 2 entities that don't even want the responsibility, let alone are qualified or trained to do it. I predict it's even get worse, because now we have 2 competing, almost identical developments within a couple miles of each other. As they start competing to sell these homes, they're going to continue to create pressure by cutting their production costs, driving down the wages of the workers more and more and more, making a need for more compliance. The bid peddling and bid shopping that the developers are doing have taken all the fair and honest contractors out of the market. What they do is they bounce it back and forth, until the fair, honest contractors, who are the ones who pay prevailing wages every day, no matter the building construction type, whether it's public or private, they're completely taken out of the market to the subcontractors who are willing to prey on their workers. The winning development is going to be the development out there that has the most complacent private labor compliance company with the least amount of oversight and the most abusive subcontractors. And we're going to see it more and more as the developments keep coming down the line. I urge the board to take a proactive stance on this issue, to consolidate the monitoring, investigation, and recovery of stolen wages and benefits from the workers to help stabilize our construction economy and protect the workers. This can only be done by a single jurisdiction public entity that doesn't have the economic influence of the development community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Maurice Velarde. I'm the organizer for the Plumbers Steam Fitters here in Castroville. I want to tell you about my story. There's a building project promontory here with AmCal, and in August we submitted a request for certified payroll. It was never granted. Everyone said, go to City Hall, go talk to the clerk, go around the street, go talk to the Planning Commission. Nobody was giving me any answers. We had a guy come forward and he told us that he was being cheated. Ultimately, the theft of $900,000 was verified by one single contractor on this particular job. Had someone stolen $100 from 7-Eleven, he'd be cuffed, he'd be in the news. Where's the outcry? Where's the outrage for $900,000 being stolen for workers that all this money was made on their backs, their sweat, their blood, and yet no one's giving us any answers? I spoke with AmCal. I told them about this. I talked to a third party. I could get into runaround everywhere I went, everywhere I turned. One of the guys actually told me that he exhausted all his options. He talked to the employer where this contribution was supposed to be putting in, and he didn't want to come to us because he thought we were all in bed together. But we assured him that no, we have the workers in mind, and we were able to verify these funds. I spoke to AmCal and asked them, in light of all this, would you reconsider as a gesture in good faith to allow access to your property? They declined. I went again, conducting lawful union activity, and they called the police on me on 2 different occasions. Nonetheless, I was able to still talk to workers and found a third party just got emailed verification that they've been ripping them off. So now, I ask you again, where's the outcry? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Ron Cheshire with the Monterey Santa Cruz Building Construction Trades Council. It is time. We've been looking at this issue for over 20 years. and it's time, but it's how to do it. We've actually addressed in a letter this issue and given FORA 2 options. Either FORA can do the compliance, or FORA can put together a select list of state certified and approved qualified third-party monitors. In both situations, standards would be developed, standards that would guarantee compliance, and that the jurisdiction could pick, not the developer, who the compliance party would be. So you actually have 2 roads you can go down. Maurice explained a situation out at the promontory, and I think we want you to realize that even though in the report it said that compliance was being done and that the monitor was working on it, nothing was wrong as far as that monitor was concerned until workers started coming forward. It's our opinion the monitor was not doing their job. The monitor had a nice, cozy business relationship with the developer, a long one. Actually had personal friendship with somebody within AMCAL. That's what he stated. This is insidious. What's taking place out here is workers are being robbed. And I don't know how the individuals that work in the construction industry can take it, but to ask whether it's a priority for an agency and whether they have the manpower, the people power, to take a look at it. Because I guarantee you, if I reached into this gentleman's back pocket and took his wallet out, his credit cards and his money, I would be in jail in a second. But the workers that are losing millions of dollars out there currently, it's, gee whiz, is it a priority to us? It has to be a priority. The workers were insured through the FORA master resolution that a level playing field would be created and that they could also prosper from the reuse of this military base, that their employers would have a fair shot at the work. So therefore, we ask you to take some action in regards to this and stop passing it down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Cesar Lara with the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council. We represent 64 different unions, 35,000 union members. And when the base closed down, there was a promise to this community. The promise was economic opportunity. A third of the base would be held open for development and 2/3 would be for open land. And that third for economic development was to try and use that to have this area recover economically with jobs. When you build new properties, that's an economic opportunity. And they took it, the master resolution said the prevailing wage should be followed to ensure that the workers that work in our area are respected and earn a wage to live off of. Since then, we've seen examples after examples of that trust running away, not at FORA's hands, but of those entities that have been given the authority to oversight some of these construction projects. We have many other examples of such projects, and we're asking FORA to come up with solutions. This body has had many problems before them as they recovered with the Fort Ord closing down and they figured it out. Now we're asking here to figure it out for the construction workers that are building the future of this former base. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Farley, Farley Associates. I'm a labor compliance specialist and I'm speaking to you as a compliance professional. one of my clients, the electricians, IBW Local 234, asked me to obtain certified payrolls on 3 subcontractors on the promontory. When they asked me, I just realized it was not going to be routine, knowing that it was not your traditional awarding body, public awarding body, and a developer and a contractor, and indeed it wasn't. I contacted City Marina, asked them who I should, if they were going to provide certified payrolls, and they said no, they didn't have anything to do with the project, and advised me to contact the developer. I did in September 2014, and basically got kicked around from the developer to the labor compliance program, or the third party, who said that they actually didn't have any statutory, that I had no standing to get the certified payrolls. So at that point we were doing research, and finally, after putting some pressure on AmCal and on the LCP, it was decided that, well, the LCP would provide the certifieds to the City Marina, and then we could request them. Eventually, I did get the certified payrolls, and when I did do the reviews, I found that there were significant issues with at least 2 of the contractors that I was looking at. I guess I just want to say that I support the recommendations that were made in the analysis, that we need to have a place, we need to have a uniform process for getting the records, and then we need to be able to interact with or get something done if we find issues with the enforcement. So anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Glenn Schaller from the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council. I simply want to ask the members of the public who are here in support of prevailing wage and for stepping up to do the right thing to stand up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for opportunity. It's a great chance to talk to all you guys. My name is Abel Moran, and I'm a construction worker. And I really like to see all these documents and paperwork, because that's the way we enforce the law. But in reality, those workers that are being affected by this negligence from the communities, they are just close their eyes, because the only thing they want is new development, new attraction, hotels, homes. But when you talk with these workers and you ask them about the wages, and they know they're being cheated by the contractor, and they look on the shoulder and say, oh, supervisor is coming to see you. I don't want to talk to you. It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary to see how these guys, they know they've been robbed, but they are scared. So what is happening in this kind of unique situation is the people we got in Salinas and Monterey County, now they're traveling to Santa Clara County, when the public entities, they are really sharp, really strong the way they enforce these regulations. And the people that are coming from San Joaquin Valley, where they are kind of mellow like us, and they allow this kind of conduct, they're coming here. They work here, and they're taking the money to their own places, the same way we're taking to the money we're bringing from Santa Clara County. But in Santa Clara County, the boom is crazy. They need hands. In Monterey County, we are just drying. We need something. You need to help us. It's your obligation, because those workers, they know. And not to pay prevailing wages, not to pay wages is a crime. And we need to persecute this like as a crime. You see this kind of blind eye? Shame on them. FORA must enforce this. Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Robertson. I'm the owner of the Labor Compliance Managers. I want to thank Mr. Ron Cheshire for calling me and asking me to come today, as he's concerned about the oversight that agencies like myself, previously known as approved third-party labor compliance professionals, actually do on these projects. I'm not used to talking in front of a formal audience, so if I seem a little nervous, I apologize. I want to, to confirm that I am actually hired by Shea Homes as a consultant to ensure that their projects are in compliance, not only with prevailing wage, but with the full settlement agreement that happened with between the building trades and the Marina community partners. I want to also assure you that if any union or labor management organization requested certified payrolls from Shea Homes, that I would be required to submit those to provide information as well as to whether or not any monitoring was being done. We currently visit the job site, we interview workers. It's not something that everybody thought we should do, because there's been a disconnect between what is really labor rights or community rights for the Fort Ord redevelopment project. It's a private project, but has public works prevailing wage requirements. So there's always this little suggestion of a loophole somewhere. I could imagine the frustration of, you know, the awarding body at this table, not just trying to make sure that the development takes place, but everybody is treated fairly, that every worker actually receives what is due to them. I can tell you that one of the agencies that scrutinizes my company specifically, and not just here at Fort Ord, but throughout Northern California, is Farley and Associates. She is very meticulous and rigid, and there's no nonsense friendship when it comes to labor compliance. But I can say that since I worked at the city of San Jose, beginning the year 2000, until now, Sarah knows that at the end of the day, she expects and often finds that I agree with her assessment in terms of prevailing wage compliance. I want to assure you that there's other clients potentially that could use my services, but I probably will invite the Fort Ord Readers Authority or any other awarding agency to consider, in fact, looking at somebody to provide the awarding agency a monthly report on some verification that site visits was done, that workers were actually receiving what contractors put on paper. How we do that? We function as auditors, but most importantly, we account to the awarding agency. That is the priority in making sure that in public works, whether it's private development or legitimate public works, that the workers, every construction employee on the job site is paid properly.
Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm a retiree. My name is Gary Alameda, and I just would like to put a different spin on this, if I may. When I drive around this county, I'm proud of all the buildings that I have been employed by. And at the same time, having the opportunity to be employed here, build some of the most famous buildings here in Monterey, and being treated fairly, giving back to my community politically and tax-wise, I'm asking you to really dig down deep, because someday maybe your son, your daughter, a member of your family will want to be in construction, and they should be treated right. They should be treated fairly. And that's all I'm asking. So please, consider that, because I'm a part of this community, and I built a part of this community, and I'm very proud of that. So please, take note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Sacedo with BIA Bay Area, and I appreciate being here this afternoon to comment. You know, the original reason and the current reason of the whole FORA board is to see the Fort Ord property redeveloped, revitalized, churning new jobs, new tax revenue, new opportunities. There are several developers here that are participating in the Fort Ord rebirth. Many, in fact most, in the BIA builders are honest, credible builders. There may be a problem with a rogue builder here. That builder needs to be dealt with. no question. I would say for BIA Bay Area, we see this as a collaborative effort. We need to find the solution, we need to find remedy, and we need to be sure that our developers and all builders in the Forward Ord project are doing so according to law and as is desired by the community. But I do caution that since we have waited so long to see the economy turn around, and we have builders that want to move forward, that there are many, many steps. There is much red tape. There are many challenges. Even the prevailing wage itself, as you've heard this afternoon, can have some challenges for a public prevailing wage and a private development. This does need to be a collaborative effort, but we should not be moving in a direction that is going to mire our builders and our developers that are doing credible work to be proud of, not only themselves, but you as well, mire them in additional workload and demands and red tape that just continues to slow down their ability to move forward and revitalize the Forward Ord properties. Again, I strongly encourage you, if there's a problem, let's deal with that problem. But let's don't burden or create a major brushstroke and say all of our developers are bad guys, because they're not. They really are not. They're going to turn this community around. The economy is good. Now is the time to let them do their work and move Forward Ord forward. BIA stands ready to help and work with you collaboratively to resolve this challenging issue that you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yvonne Stone, Director of Forward Ord Environmental Justice Network. We have represented the local community since this base closed. And we're talking about the people and the contractors union and everything else. I attended the first meeting in Monterey County, and when I got up to speak for those people, there was a line behind me. What is being said is we brought in the Forward Ord Job Training Initiative in 2010. We interviewed 350 people, and the EPA said that they would pay to have these people trained to work on Forward Ord. And that's supposed to be in the building trade, carpenters, and everything else. When those people graduated, the 20 that they could pay for, they wanted to see how it would work, and they would put more money into the community for training, and that's what we need. None of those people were hired. We are still in a situation here. And I'm asking also, even of the affordable housing that we've been needing for such a long time, Massanita Village or the University Village, I want to know how many of those units are for the local people. The black community has been severely marginalized. They're the last hired and the first fired. We need to look at all of this, and that has been what we have been doing as the Forward Ord Environmental Justice Network, trying to work with the federal government, state government, local community groups, and as a commissioner here, unpaid. That's what our job has been. We have been fighting for prevailing wage with the county. We're still waiting to find out what the outcome is. And I'm just bringing this information forward because everybody here seems to be saying the same thing. So it would be a good idea for the board to give Mr. Hulamar the authority to work with the local community, because we know what is needed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other public coming up for making comments or questions, I will close public comment and ask our executive officer to address Ms. Stone's question, if he may.
I think Ms. Stone's question was generally related to the idea of producing more housing and more development on the base with prevailing wage, and specifically it had to do with if those housing projects are being accessed by local residents versus more regional residents, and I think I will respond to her by connecting directly with the housing providers in both cases and get this back to the board. The other issues she mentioned will be part of the economic development report.
Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion and then bring up comments or questions. If anyone, Mayor Rubio, make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make.
You didn't make it?
I didn't make it yet. I'd like to make a motion that. That
someone wants to leave.
Yeah, that FORA staff engage in the recommendations advised by the third-party labor compliance persons, and specifically create a local place for record retention. Also include requirements for access to other records. Require field inspections, and that consequences such as fines and/or debarment for violations be enforced. To please bring back a comprehensive program to accomplish that. And also to look at two options. One, FORA as being the enforcement and compliance entity, and looking at a preferred list of credible, approved compliance operators for the Fort Ord.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Is it seconded?
I'll second it unless Ian has pride of place.
Supervisor Parker seconded. Any?
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment that I really appreciate Mayor Rubio's comments at the outset and his motion. I support that 100%. and think this is something that will be very valuable for us to get resolved and really take action soon.
Thank you. Board Member Lucius?
Thank you. I also support the motion, but it occurred to me as I was listening to the speakers that it sounds like much of what was described could be categorized as criminal acts. And I think we need to be careful to distinguish FORA's mandate. I don't think FORA wants to take on the responsibility of being a lead investigator on what may be criminal acts. And also, as FORA is winding down in the next couple of years, the executive director may come back to us with a comprehensive proposal, but I would also encourage the board to consider a two-prong approach. One being what FORA's role should be in the next 4 years, but then also in the next 5 years. Thank you, I know. I'm getting ahead of myself. But also how FORA will turn that over to the jurisdictions. Because I think in the short term, we may be doing the jurisdictions a favor and hopefully setting a good model. But in the long term, we may be doing the jurisdictions a disfavor, and I think or a disservice. We need to be careful to kind of have a long-term view of this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Board Member Hoffman.
I'd like to thank the workers and the representatives of the various labor organizations who took the time to be here. And I'd just like to say that paying prevailing wage is not a burden, it's not red tape, it's the law. And what I heard from Mayor Rubio is that collectively we've failed the workers in our region by not having a mechanism in place to enforce that law or to make sure that the law is enforced by the proper authorities. So I applaud the motion, and I'm glad that we are going to look at options so that we can ensure our workers are paid a fair wage.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? Yes.
Yes, does staff have enough guidance in determining what credible and approved compliance officers are, what that looks like? I mean, I can see this being a question when the report comes back Is there any, do you need any other comments in that area?
No, I believe that we have heard from the workers, we've heard from the developers. My expectation to respond to Board Member Lucius's comment and your comment is that in bringing a comprehensive program back, we're going to take advantage of the offers made today that we would work with the developers, the jurisdictions, the Labor Council representatives in particular have already offered. We will continue to work with all of them in bringing that comprehensive program back. We do need to address the question of what happens in 5 years, 4 months, and 20 and 17 days. But we do need to also think about the financing and the cost. We're going to be really earning every nickel of our salaries for the next 6 months to try to get this done in 1 month. But I think it's urgent that we get it back soon. So in the way of a status report, we'll be doing that next month. We have done something like this in the past. We want to get it updated and make sure that we have that sort of comprehensive input so that we get a comprehensive program back.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just a question. I think you vaguely touched on my concern, and I think you might have said it, but there would be a financial analysis of the implementation of this associated with this. Great.
Yes.
In my earlier questions, I might have created the impression that I wasn't supportive of this. I want to be very clear that I am supportive of it. The CSU as a system has a prevailing wage policy, and of course we're not directly involved in this project, but it's a project that's being developed in anticipation of demand by our students, so we are concerned about it. We did look into it, and I want to, you know, I support the motion and I applaud it.
Thank you. I don't see any other. To the clerk, do you have that motion or do you need to have it repeated? You're fine with it? Great. Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for coming. At first, when you walked in, I thought this was Giant Day, but have a great Valentine's Day and a great holiday, hopefully on Monday. Moving along now to public comment on matters not on the present agenda. You have up to 3 minutes. Again, you do not have to state your name or your residence. If there's anyone here after that item. Is there anyone in the public that desires to make a comment relating to any matter that is not on the agenda? Ms. Stone, please wait a second to give them the opportunity to leave. If you are having a discussion, would you please take it outside? Thank you. Yes, Ms. Stone, go ahead. One minute left. Maybe you could use the one that Mr. Lay has. Yeah. Jen has one. Okay, fine.
It's my understanding that with what's going on with the roads, and we've seen a lot of improvement. We've seen a lot of maybe over improvement, because it's my understanding that there's going to be taxes to pass the cost of these millions of dollars that's being spent on the roads to the consumers. And most of us cannot afford to pay anything else because the jobs are not here. The businesses are not in our community. We are not able to develop them so that we could create the funds to pay for additional. Everything is going up. All the utilities, now we got roads. So I'm really concerned about that, and all my constituents are concerned about that.
Thank you, Ms. Stone.
Ron Cheshire. We'd really like to work with Levon someday in regards to this whole issue. What you just heard, it's been very frustrating over the years, but one of the key issues here is the lack of training that's taking place, and we really want to bring something forward to you here in the near future. I also want you to know that I met with the business manager of operating engineers local 3 up in the Bay Area. They cover most of the western United States and Hawaii, and discussed the possibility of setting up a training program on the Fort Ord, tear down the old stockade, take a look at tearing down maybe some of the hammerheads. They're interested in receiving information. I would like to meet with someone in the staff that can provide such information so we could move it forward to them. That would provide a very good training opportunity, not only for them, but for local people, and also may save for a few dollars. So just wanted you to know those things. And again, is just the whole idea of training, bringing training into FORA as the base is being redeveloped is very important for the future generations. I've served my time. It's time to move on with other individuals that are seeking opportunity in this area. So thank you, and we'll be talking with you.
Thank you, sir. Any other member of the public, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Billy Harrell. I am here representing the Monterey County African American Chamber of Commerce. On February 28th, we have a Black Business Expo at the Embassy Suites. I have a flyer that I could pass out to all you guys that haven't heard about it yet or haven't been contacted about it. But basically, we have 12 workshops that will be done. One of the primary workshops is that we have Director of General Service coming down to get any business that would like to be certified. Also, the lady that's in charge, Cheryl Gates, that handles all the real estate for the state of California, she will be here also to do a presentation. And of course, I mean, there are other workshops. One of the key parts of the Black Business Expo is at 6 o'clock. We have a VIP reception, and I think we're 90 plus 95% sure that Bill Monting will be our key person at the reception, because we do plan to honor him. This is an invitation to all the elected officials in Monterey County to attend. Okay, we have invited the governor. Whether he's going to come or not is probably not, but anyway, he's been invited. The best part about this is the afternoon at 6 o'clock after the VIP reception. Then we have a gala ball and dinner. The dinner is a barbecue dinner. We have, some of you may or may not know Brian Porter. He have a little barbecue smoke pit, which he does an excellent job on cooking the meal. And we've got Embassy Suites to agree to allow him to cook all the barbecue. So each person that buy a ticket will get a slice of brisket. They will get 2 barbecue ribs. They will get a piece of chicken and a hot link, besides the southern sides. So after that is dancing up until midnight when you turn into Cinderella. So we are inviting you to attend. All the workshops are free. There are no charges for the workshops. There are a number of workshops. You may want to take a look at the flyer. You know, after your meeting, I'll be delighted to give you a copy of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For the record, FORA does have a table at that event, and appreciate your comments and information that you gave us today. Well, we'll have to reconsider everything now.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you know who I am, Sid Williams. You know why I'm here, just to talk about veterans issues. You haven't seen me or very many veterans here of late because we have been making progress. One of the biggest things that helped us make that progress was the committee that you reapproved and reasserted this evening. We appreciate that very much. I am glad that Mr. Hulamard was able to discuss the March 13th groundbreaking for the long-awaited cemetery. But the fight will not be over until the thing is complete. This is only phase one. There are detractors. We will be back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jack Stewart. These are not notes for my little spiel. I am very concerned that I must stand up here time and time again and remind this body of the original base reuse plan and the input from the community since 1994 was the 3 E's: education, environment, and economic recovery. We have been very successful on education. CSUMB is now in place. Chartwell School's on the Fort Ord campus now. Lovely teaching facility. And we have overcooked environment. Be honest with you. We have overcooked it. We have not scratched the surface for economic development. We have 3 wonderful community colleges in our area: Cabrillo, MPC, and Hartnell. They provide certificate programs that train people how to get meaningful employment. Certificate program, nurses, EMTs, carpenters, welders, dental assistants, on and on and on. We have got to support these people. They can train all the people and certify all the people they want. But if there's no jobs here, guess what? They have to move elsewhere. We've lost our youth for the satisfaction of people who do not want further growth. Our population on our planet, it's growing, folks, like it or not. Unless you want to put a mandate like, I won't go back there. Anyway, Soylent Green, okay? But anyway, we've got a youth problem. We've got youth who can't find jobs, and they turn to gangs. Folks, people are shooting each other in our communities. All for the sake, some people on this board are delaying the process of economic development through the ruse. The most recent one is this study on development design. Who is going to pay for that development design?
Mr. Stewart, please.
Yes?
On matters not on the agenda, please.
Pardon?
That was on the agenda, so if...
Okay, forget that part. We as taxpayers are required to pay for developments. Even after someone's gone and built a project, no matter when it's done or by whom it's done, the cities must maintain responsibility for maintaining that property. And remember one thing in my party: hire a vet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no other member of the public, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board and go to number 10, Executive Office Report. After this report is done, I will entertain any comments that anyone needs or wants to make relating to the design guidelines that we had earlier in the agenda.
Yes, Chair, the 2 items that I did want to highlight, one is item 10F, the Regional Urban Design Guidelines. We mentioned earlier that anyone that wanted to make a comment about the Regional Urban Design Guidelines, we could do it at this point in time. I just want to highlight the fact that the Regional Urban Design Guidelines Task Force has done an extraordinary amount of extra work in addition to all of the other committees and other activities that our administrative committee members are involved with, like John Dunn, the city managers in Delray Oaks and Marina, and even Sand City city manager has actively been involved. Carl Holm from the county's been actively involved. Lots of extra hours involved in all of this process, and it has contributed mightily to the quality of what we're getting back. So, Chair, this might be the time it'd be appropriate if any of the board members had comments about the presentation earlier to comment.
Is there any board member? Yes, Mr. Rubio.
Yes, I want to thank the task force and FORA and Dover Cole for expanding the outreach for these sessions and going mobile and going to Seaside and getting some input out there. But we have been watching this closely, staff and several council members, and we have some concerns in regards to what is actually being developed here. Some of the iterations are just kind of gloss over some of our approved projects and plans. They haven't been recognized in those iterations and show something totally different from what we've already approved. And I know that we're trying to get a global look at things, but we need to recognize what's been done already so that people don't get the wrong idea about redoing what's been done. The other thing is that the primary focus of the work product shown at the open house and work in progress meetings were providing renderings of specific project locations that suggested land use changes versus focusing on illustrating alternatives for design elements and features. And that's really a problem for the jurisdictions, because the jurisdictions would like to create our own identity and yet incorporate, the new urbanism, some of the elements, but maybe not a full-blown acceptance of every precept of new urbanism. So as Seaside moves forward and redoes its general plan, some of these elements that have not been already incorporated may be incorporated, but we're very concerned about an overlay of authority over our land use jurisdiction authority. When we start talking about some of these zoning codes, form-based zoning codes, what does that mean to a jurisdiction? Does that mean we have to change our codes? So these are discussions that we're going to have. I know staff has some concerns that they will present to staff in a more formal form, but I just wanted to highlight that these things are going to be important to Delray Oaks, Monterey, the county, Seaside, and Marina as to how we move forward with the implementation of regional guidelines. We accept the spirit that this is being done, but as we all know, the devil is in the detail, and we just don't want to we just want to make sure that the details don't kind of prohibit us from taking care of our own. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Mayor-
Chair.
Mayor
I'd like to piggyback on Mayor Rubio's comments. First of all, I think the charrettes we went through is probably one of the best educational experiences I've had in years. I thought the presentation was outstanding. The interaction with the public was outstanding. I mean, I learned a heck of a lot, and I guarantee you a lot of the knowledge that was transferred during the charrettes between my city manager, other members of my planning commission, myself, we will implement those in Delray Oaks. Again, the concern is during the charrettes and listening to folks, there was a minority there, but a very activist minority that appeared to want to use the charrettes and the regional urban design guidelines as a tool to limit growth. Somehow a lot of these folks felt that the regional urban design guidelines were there, they could use those If a land use jurisdiction want to do something, they would say, well, if you don't exactly go with what we say with regard to the guidelines, you're not going to be able to do it. So I think that's against the intent. I think the initial intent, guidelines are guidelines. The other thing, there was a term used, and Mayor Rubio brought it up, form-based codes. I have a attorney friend that says, hey, there are legal implications. If we use the term guidelines in the regional urban design guidelines, that's one thing, there are guidelines. If we use the term form-based codes, there are legal connotations of that have the force of law that would force land use jurisdictions to utilize those guidelines as law. It might also require the land use jurisdictions to redo their general plans, which is very, very expensive, especially for a small city. So I guess my only admonition is when our consultants go back and do the great work that they're doing, you know, look at the work you're doing as guidelines, come back with guidelines and not with something that's going to be used as a hammer against land use jurisdictions to keep us from doing what we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Board Member Hoffa?
I just wanted to acknowledge that I certainly hear and understand the concerns of my colleagues that they want to retain the, you know, the jurisdictional power that they have to set the guidelines for their own city's development. That makes sense. But the one thing I think we do need to be cognizant of is, as people move from jurisdiction to jurisdiction on our roads and trails, that those particular areas, we need to think about ensuring that there's some sort of a reasonable and more uniform guideline. I can certainly think of an intersection not too far from here where jurisdictional cooperation didn't lead to the best result. We don't want people on bikes going down a great trail in one city and then bam, they run into a dead end and end up on a street that's completely impassable. So I think I would just encourage them to be open to that kind of coordination.
Thank you. Board Member Morton, please.
Yes, I wanted to thank the task force, the Dover Coal groups, thank you very much, and also staff. Josh and Jonathan did a tremendous job. As having participated as much as possible as a city councilwoman from Marina, and you were making guidance for us based on the charrette process of what the public weighed in on. And as an elected official, it was very important for me to attend these meetings because I was trained to hear what is the public asking for. And the focus is, I see these emerging guidelines, fronts face front, meaning how you build the buildings, street connectivity, primacy of open space and vistas, scale of public spaces, walkable streets, legible centers, mixed uses, mixed housing types, context sensitive to our trails and our connections, and customized gateways. I find those guidelines to be instructive to me as an individual, to my staff, my city manager, my planners, as guidelines that they're going to be applying in how we go forward in the development of Marina. So I did not have the reaction that I'm hearing from my colleagues that as a Marina elected or my staff as city manager participated in or sat in with the city manager and the planners, I saw it as the exchange of tremendous amounts of public input and information that as a city in Marina, we could never afford to do this charrette that you've conducted, Dover Coal. We could never have afforded to collect all of this information. So I'm looking at it as a wealth of information that I'm trying to get my staff to backlog into our city documents and our city and how we go forward and what we're doing and how projects come forward in our city, that these guidelines, the 10 that have been identified as where we're starting, as the work product that's coming back. And I get that you showed us a rendition that I happen to like that extends Del Monte Avenue, but I get that that's just an artist's conception applying these 10 guidelines. So I'm hoping that we're able to do that in Marina. And I thank you very, very much for all of your efforts, staff, getting us all there, sending us the emails to tell us where to be and when, and for all of the FORA board for extending this opportunity to Marina. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to make the comment about this whole process. I think it's a very positive one, and I wanted to emphasize the distinction between guidelines and form-based codes. It's correct that form-based codes would have more binding power, but those would be presumably set by the jurisdictions, not by FORA. And so really, I think this is meant to work in the phrase that was used earlier, through the power of ideas. The concept of this process is to expose people to multiple ways of thinking, multiple perspectives, and let those ideas themselves influence, in a voluntary way, action at the local level. It's the old saying, think globally and act locally. The jurisdictions have the responsibility, the authority to act locally on behalf of the residents, but they can be most effective in that if they recognize the regional character of our economy and how everything we do is interconnected. And so, even I'll take CSUMB's case. I got exposed to an alternative that is not necessarily the one we thought of, so I am making an effort to keep my mind open to it, while I'm somewhat skeptical. But I recognize that there are certain objectives that we share that make sense for us, and there's broad agreement about those basic ideas. The idea that, for example, that the campus needs to concentrate its further development so that we create the density that can lead to energy on the campus. The need for us to develop public-private partnerships so that we can break out of the constraints of state funding, and that implies concentrating and then freeing some acreage for private-public partnerships. The question is, where is that going to happen exactly, and how does that connect with some of the other regional concerns? So I'm keeping an open mind. We're going to go through a campus master plan revision, and certainly this experience is going to influence our process and our thinking. There are no guarantees that we'll adopt any or all of the ideas that were presented, but it's been helpful, and I hope that all of you feel that way too.
Thank you. Supervisor Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the comments that have already been made, and I won't repeat them, except to thank the Dover Coal Group, the FORA staff, and really all the members of the public and the staff from the various jurisdictions who really turned out, and the fact that the way this process was laid out really allowed for the public to have input and be part of the conversation in a different way than just 3 minutes talking about a specific project that now they've just, suddenly it looks like it's a train barreling down towards them and they're not sure they like it. I mean, often that's the only time that the public gets to be involved. So really being able to talk from a much more, aspirational perspective, I think was really valuable, and for the thing to be set up so that we could hear from the public. Then there were times when the group interacted with people, staff from the jurisdictions, as well as maybe elected officials or others, to really drill down to where, their way of thinking about some of the same things. Really very nicely put together, very effective, I thought. And but one of the things that just charmed me the most was to see, people would come and say, well, I really want something that do this, and I want to be able to get from here to there and have it be such and such. And then these people turned that into pictures, and really made it, like a, an action movie, so that you could sort of get a feel for what it would look like from different perspectives. And that was really valuable to me, to be able to see, people just kind of throwing thoughts out there, and then these folks being able to turn it into something, whether that, it may not be the final product, but it just gives you a sense for the feel that we're working for. And that was really amazing and helpful. There was something else I was going to say, and it is wisping away into the Friday afternoon. Let's see if it comes back halfway quickly. Just the fact that we talk about these design guidelines, but really I have no idea what I mean, I'm getting a little bit better idea of what design guidelines are, but I've heard the words, but I don't really know how that translates onto the page, although I saw some drawings, and then into action. So today we heard about, well, design guidelines sounds like they're not form-based codes. Another set of words, I'm not quite sure what they are. But I think it's really been a great educational process, as Mayor Edelin mentioned, and I think it will continue to be as we figure out what are the elements that, depending on the jurisdiction and the thing you're trying to do, what are the things we can do first to start sending the signal that we want to have a place that's really magnetic and attractive to people, where they want to be and spend their time, and that it's easy for them to get where they want to go, walking or riding their bikes, in addition to by car, if that's how they need to travel. So anyway, it's just going to be a very interesting process, and I really appreciate the quality of this part of the conversation, and I'm interested in how the rest unfolds. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I just would like, on behalf of MPC, to applaud the entire process. I think the largest word on one of those word clouds was opportunity. I think we have a great opportunity here. And change is scary. Change is sometimes resisted. We hear the president of a major university considering changing his perspective. One of the things that MPC needs the most is to have a place for our faculty and staff to live that's affordable, a living, learning, recreating community that's beautiful, near the campus, meets all the objectives of FORA, and I think I saw some visions in that direction. I certainly support it. The devil is in the details, but you know, it's an opportunity for us, and I think we should embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member? Yes.
It's been an opportunity for the last 20 years, so this is nothing new. And I am worried about the form-based coding, and I think we need to have our legal staff look at where we locked in at. And it's about ideals. But exactly when you get to your limit and you say, well, that's an ideal I don't want to pick up, the jurisdictions, I know for me, is saying the same thing. And we heard a few minutes ago about, well, we may just want to have bicycling and walking, or particularly bicycling, and you don't want one community, a guy driving down the road on the bicycle lane, he goes to another community and he ends right there. Well, that one community with a $55 million budget butts up to a community with a $23 million budget. So that's why sometimes the roads don't line up and the bicycle lanes don't line up. But do we all want bicycle lanes? Do we want a walkable community? Yes, we do. But am I going to sit here as a FORA member and say I'm going to try to dictate what Delray Oaks put on their side of their boundaries, and what Monterey puts on their boundaries, and what Seaside puts on its boundaries? If these are guidelines, let's take the best of the guidelines and integrate them. But what we have seen is we have seen people looked at our land and said, this is how you should redesign your piece of property. And that's a non-starter. You know, that's a non-starter. So that's where we're at. And there are good ideals. And I think any one of us that have piece of property or jurisdiction on Fort Ord already have some of those guidelines. We already have walkable communities. I mean, this is not that new. Urbanism, that's a new terminology, probably been out there for years and years, but I didn't remember signing up to say someone comes over to Fort Ord and every center, every jurisdiction ends up with the same walkable, bikeable community. I don't remember us asking for that. But exchange of ideals, yes. Some of the renderings are beautiful, and I would love them to have in my town, but how they get there, what pace, where they come from, we don't know. We don't know who pushes out. We talk about opportunities. Well, where are the jobs at? How do we get opportunity if we don't want to build? So I look forward to it. I like the interaction. Staff is doing good. I know we got the world-renowned experts here, but they're supposed to provide us with more options, you know, and opportunities to think about these things and take the best that's out there. And I think we could do that. But I don't see how FORA says these are the ones you need to have. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. Any other board member? Seeing none, Mr. Hulmar, would you like to finish 10F and, 10G and 10H?
Yes, Chair O'Connell, item 10G has to do with board travel report. There's an item in the travel report called Upcoming Travel, and Association Defense Communities Installation Innovation Forum is going to be March 15th through 17th. I mention that in particular because we are going to be purchasing an opportunity for members of the board to participate in that conference, and Chair O'Connell has asked that we consider a new board member travel procedure, and was discussed with the executive committee last week. And if you'll notice on page 54 of 56, there's a new suggestion about how we might proceed forward with this travel procedure, which would align opportunities for newer board members with more seasoned, I won't say elder. Mayor Edel, and I won't say elder, Mayor Edel. More seasoned board members that have of duration. We know that Mayor Pendergrass holds the record. So that there's a balance between the two, and that more folks get an exposure and an opportunity to see what the connection that FORA has with the rest of the nation's defense communities, and how some of what other people are doing could be translated for use here at the former Fort Ord. So that's Chair O'Connell's suggestion, and so that's the travel procedure that we're going to use. Now that is, and we're going to try to do this by balancing a little, and I'm going to try to take the liberty of working with board members as we go down the list that's attached that indicates the number of years. If you'll notice, not everyone is exactly correct.
And mine's not correct.
It's actually rounding. So in some cases,
you'd have to round up. You'd have to round up, because I was here as a representative for TAMSI for probably 3 years when I was on Monterey City Council, ex officio capacity.
Actually, I think the truth is you have been on the FORA board since its inception in one case or another. So I thought you might not want to announce that. So, but anyhow, Chair, that's all I have on this item. You did mention if we get too much testimony, we would proceed forward. I don't have anything else to add on 10H.
Okay, thank you very much. If the number of years you've been on the board is inaccurate, please let staff know. Going to items from members, number 11. Is there any member of the board who has any item they want to discuss briefly?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick announcement that some of you probably know, but I'll just repeat in case many of you have had the experience now of working with the Dover Coal Group. There is the opportunity for any jurisdiction, not just one with land on the former Fort Ord, to work with the Dover Coal Partnership to take a look at your downtown plan or any aspect of your city that you'd like them to help you figure out how to kickstart, get moving. You know, a lot of these elements are already in our general plans and specific area plans and so on, but these folks can help us figure out you know, how to really get it started, particularly without redevelopment money anymore. Anyway, they're a great resource, and the county has made the offer that the county will pay half of your costs of engaging with this group up to your expense of $20,000, so the county would reimburse you $10,000 of that 20. So if I will send information about that to Lena, and maybe she can distribute it to board members so that any jurisdiction in the county of Monterey that's interested in working with them in that way is welcome to take advantage of the offer.
Great news, thank you. Board Member Lay?
I would like to request an agenda item to be placed on the board March meeting because it's time sensitive, and the requested agenda item is for the FORA board to discuss and endorse the proposed diesel project by Marina Coast. You may be aware that you know, we have a 6 agency, local agency, you know, negotiate on the groundwater project, and Marina Coast cannot make a decision until we receive you know, a vote from for a board, you know, either up or down, you know, so we know that we what to do. And the reason for that, because without a FORA board vote, we will not be able to tell other agency whether they can use the reclaimed water owned by Marina Coast through its senior right. And also, we cannot tell other agency whether they can use the existing purple pipe owned by Marina Coast. So we're looking for a decision by the board, either up or down, so we can tell other agency. Then, SIG agency like to conclude the negotiation in March, and enter into different agreements. So some of you were, in the negotiation, and you were aware of the process, and your decision will affect the Poor Water Montreal groundwater recharge project. And I don't think we have more time beyond the March because of the schedule for the EIR and on the step. And I hope that you will, grant my request. Thank you.
If you please send me an email as to your request, and I'll take it up with the executive officer and see whether or not we can get this in front of the appropriate committee. Thank you. Any other board member? Well, Board Member Potter's putting his keys in his pocket, so we'll adjourn this meeting at 4:25. Thank you very much. Have a happy Valentine's Day and a great Monday holiday.